Retirement is close, but with an all-Ferrari front row, Michael Schumacher senses that so too is an astonishing 8th world title. It's the Japanese Grand Prix, with Fernando Alonso having to fight his way from 5th on the grid. It seems the odds are stacked against him in Suzuka.
We are in an ideal position. We Ferrari being the first row, we have Renault's in the 3rd row, so that's as good as it could be.
I think the Ferraris are too quick for us this weekend, so try to concentrate in the Toyota and try to get the podium.
Penultimate round of the Formula One World Championship may be the last Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, where conditions are dry, no rain forecast. Once again, it's all to the advantage of Ferrari and those Bridgestone tyres. Good morning. Everything went the way of Ferrari in qualifying yesterday as well. Felipe Massa on pole position, Michael Schumacher alongside him on the front row, Fernando Alonso back in 5th. Well, Mark Blundell is with us at this very early hour to watch the drama unfold in Japan, and Fernando Alonso must be very careful that Schumacher doesn't put the championship title out of sight with one race still left to run.
I think there's a big possibility of that happening, Steve, because, you know, Alonso is down there in 5th position. He's got to make sure he gets a great start and gets by the 2 Toyotas on the 2nd row. And if he can tag on the back, he's still got to make sure he gets by Massa, because I'm sure that Schumacher will get the lead of this race very early and take command.
And those conditions, once again, very much in favour of Ferrari, very much in favour of Bridgestone.
They are, but we don't know what the situation is with the tyre degradation in terms of wear and tear, because all of the practice sessions have pretty much been in wet conditions. So I think everybody goes in with a blank canvas, but you still got to look at it and say Bridgestone are the strong one for this race.
So maybe the odd crumb of comfort for Renault, but let's remind you of the championship positions and underline the fact that a win today for Michael Schumacher, with Alonso failing to score, would give Schumacher his 8th world title with one race still to run of both the season and his great career. Level on points after Schumacher's win in China, but he leads by virtue of having more race victories. Renault, though, just ahead in defence of the equally coveted Constructors' title. But in Japan, the prospect and possibility of Ferrari rounding off Schumacher's career in the most glorious fashion has been the talk of the pit lane and the paddock, and our experts have been looking at the evidence as well.
The thrilling finale to this year's Formula One World Championship is all about mental strength. Michael Schumacher has the momentum, speed and confidence to take this title. Fernando Alonso has regained speed in the Renault in all conditions and is also looking good. They're both driving to a stunning new level.
They're both exceptional drivers, and I don't think either of them are likely to sort of throw it off the circuit easily. So I think we've got a very exciting end to the season.
I think Michael has a big chance, but, you know, it's all on, you know, how it goes. You know, everything can happen on this stage.
It's in the area of tyres that there's perhaps the greatest potential for a difference in performance between Ferrari and Renault. If it's a wet track that's drying out, they're on these tyres here. We saw in China that Renault have the clear advantage there. If it's absolutely chucking it down, you throw on the full wet tyre. And Bridgestone and Ferrari were very competitive in those situations.
But you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to realise that in dry conditions, the Bridgestone so far has been the tyre to be on.
God, it is so tight in the balance, it's incredible really.
The Ferrari is the strongest car at the moment, so if it stays dry, I think Michael has a very good chance to win it.
Aerodynamically, the two cars are about as good as each other. It's too close to call. Where the Renault does have an advantage is that it's got great traction out of uphill, slow corners, and there are a few of them here in Japan and plenty of them in Brazil. Engine-wise, they're also pretty similar on outright power, so it's all going to come down to reliability. Now, how's this? The last time Ferrari had an engine failure in a race was Indianapolis 2001, whereas Renault, of course, had a failure with Alonso 2 races ago in Monza, and Alonso also caned his engine at the last event in Shanghai, so he's going to have to nurse it through the race. Engine-wise, the advantage is with Ferrari.
I still think they have the stronger car at the moment, and I will put it on Michael.
Enough a small mistake or a bad luck which can handle the championship to one or the other driver.
Back in July, the championship looked like a foregone conclusion. Now with just 2 races left to run, doubts are creeping in. These guys refuse to be defeated, but team morale did take a bit of a battering after those mistakes in China. And with Alonso questioning the team's support, that doesn't really help matters. There's no doubting this team's devotion to Michael Schumacher. Ferrari's facing the end of an era, but Michael's departure just gives them all the more reason to go out on a high.
If you look at the Ferrari, the last few races have been a little bit stronger. But if it's wet, you know, we really don't know.
For some reason, I still think Alonso has more chances than Michael.
To conclude then, Michael Schumacher is favourite to take this World Championship, but Fernando Alonso is more than good enough to snatch it away from him.
If we do everything right and the weekend goes well, we can do it.
So much of the evidence seems to point towards Ferrari, but Martin also picks out the question of mental strength, which is so important at this stage of the season. Is it advantage Schumacher there as well?
I think it has to be, because he's already won several times this World Championship title. Alonso only won it the once. And I think there's a big difference as well with even with the age. Schumacher there, 37 years old, Alonso a lot younger. He knows how to handle people in terms of being in the same position, in terms of getting the pressure diluted and not having to bring everything to the table at once. He's making sure that he's got everybody working for the same aim, and that's to win the title, which he's done so many times before.
And in the week we heard some strong criticism from Fernando Alonso aimed at his team. He didn't feel that he was getting the right kind of team support. What did that tell you about his mindset?
I think it just shows that he's cracking slightly, Steve, because you can see that he's getting a little bit frustrated. He's having a little go at his teammate, he's having a go at the team around him. It's not really conducive to making sure that he's got the best goods and the best amount of effort going into seeing if he can get this title won. And he's off at the end of the season. Schumacher's retiring, he's going to a different team. A little bit of pressure, and it's starting to show some cracks and some little edginess.
Well, it does seem unthinkable that given the early season dominance of Fernando Alonso that we're even thinking about the possibility of Michael Schumacher taking the title, let alone with 1 race still to go. You'll recall that Alonso won the opening race in Bahrain. By round 9 in Canada, he'd won 6 races, finished second in all the others, and seemed out of sight with a 25-point championship lead. But Canada was his last win. Schumacher has won 5 of the last 7. He drew level on points and moved ahead in the championship by virtue of 7 wins to Alonso's total of 6. As well as the odd setback then for Renault, the simple reason for the turnaround, Mark, is what? Ferrari consistency?
I think it's been consistency by Ferrari and them not wanting to give up. They've been pushing all the time. But let's look at Renault as well. We know that they've been hampered by several things during the season. The mass damper issue there, they had to get their heads around that and re-evaluate their car and get it balanced out again. And there's been a couple of little niggles there with reliability. But at the end of all of it, I think, you know, it's Renault and Alonso losing this championship, not the other way around.
But then came qualifying in Japan yesterday, and Ferrari supremely dominant, and Bridgestone tyres dominant as well, as James Allen tells us in his qualifying report.
All season long, the tyre war between Michelin and Bridgestone has swung in one team's favour or another, and that's really dictated the performance relatively of Ferrari and Renault. But at no stage of this season have we seen a performance advantage like the one enjoyed yesterday by Bridgestone. Michael Schumacher was 1.4 seconds faster than Fernando Alonso in the second qualifying session, and eventual pole sitter Felipe Massa was 1.8 seconds quicker than Alonso in the final pole position shootout. Alonso starting this race then from 5th place on the grid, and he's got 2 Toyotas in front of him as well as the 2 Ferraris. Also suffering a lot of pain in qualifying with the McLaren team. They failed to make the top 10 cut for the first time this season with both cars. Red Bull had a difficult day as well. Neither of them managed to make it into the final 16, eliminated then in the first knockout session as they failed to keep pace with the development of the teams around them on their cars. But it wasn't easy for Ferrari. Under pressure from Toyota, they had to go out at the end of the session, and it was Massa and not Michael Schumacher that got the cleaner lap. Either way, it seems that so great is the performance advantage of Bridgestone here this weekend that Ferrari looks set to do irreparable damage to Alonso and Renault's title hopes.
It's better to have both Ferraris in the front. When you see the 2 Renaults on the third row, it's also even better for us. Now we just need to concentrate in the race. I'm really motivated to help the team.
What's the role that Felipe will play with you?
Go as quick as he can and hopefully take points away off Fernando.
So you wouldn't mind if he won this race?
I would be preferring to be in front of him, yeah, but obviously I have to drive for that, to do that.
I'm really looking forward to that race because I think, you know, the Bridgestone, not only in qualifying, even the longest run today, showed that very competitive. So I think we should be even better in the race.
The Ferrari looks too quick for all the rest of the teams, but I think the conditions in the race can change a lot. The tyres, we know, are quick for one lap, but we don't know the degradation of the Bridgestone tyres. So, you know, try to do our race the maximum we can, and let's wait and see what is the result at the end.
So to confirm the grid for this Japanese Grand Prix, which is due off at 6 a.m. your time, all Ferrari front row as Felipe Massa takes the second pole of his career, Michael Schumacher alongside. All Toyota second row, Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli, as Bridgestone runners take the first 4 places. Fernando Alonso, Giancarlo Fisichella make up that all Renault third row. And then it's Honda with Jenson Button in 7th ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello. Huge disappointment further down the grid for McLaren. Raikkonen in 11th as both McLarens failed to make the third qualifying session. And the 2 Red Bulls of David Coulthard and Robert Dornbos failed to get through the first session. They'll start way back on row 9. Coulthard particularly despondent after that qualifying session. But looking at the other end of the grid, what do you expect from the Toyotas, Mark, off row 2?
Well, historically, Steve, we've seen the Toyotas be quick in qualifying, but then when they get to the race, they steadily fall back. That's because they've normally got the low fuel level on. But I don't see anything changing here. I'll be very surprised. The only thing what is on the upside for them is that they've got the Bridgestone tyre, and maybe that's going to hold them up there a little bit longer. But Renault, Alonso need to get by those 2 Toyotas at the beginning of this race.
How urgent is it that Alonso gets past as early as he physically can then?
It has to try and do it. He has to try and use the advantage of that fast start in Renault there and get by into the first corner. But we've seen a few first corner problems here at this circuit in particular over the years gone by. But he makes an impact there, and if he can get onto the back of Massa and Schumacher, then he can half his job done.
Okay, let's pay our first live visit over to Suzuka and join Louise. Louise, good morning to you.
Yeah, the atmosphere is starting to build up here, Stephen. I'm joined by a man who's seen a few championships decided over the years, a few of them here at this circuit as well. Who's your money on this year, Jean? You're in the red corner with Alonso, red corner with Michael Schumacher, or the blue corner with Alonso?
Well, to be honest, I have a friend, he's Michael, but now it's going to be just luck. There is only 2 races left, they have the same points. The competition, the level of speed in between Ferrari and Renault are the same, I believe. So the luckiest one is going to be the champion.
Do you think either of the drivers is mentally stronger at the moment?
They are both very strong. I mean, they fight for the whole season. They are together now, and together on the points level. And I really believe nobody is going to be weak on this respect.
Thanks, Jean.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get the view from the Renault garage, and we're with the guy that we hear on the radio all the time, and that's Alonso's engineer, Rod Nelson, and a strange sort of audience here. I'm not quite sure what this is all about. They're all maybe wanting to say hello. Anyway, listen, let's get down to serious business. Fernando's kind of looked under pressure recently, Rod. Is he starting to break a bit?
Not at all. We've had a couple of races where we've dropped the ball ourselves. I don't think you can blame any of that on Fernando, so no, we're ready to go, ready to roll.
So how are you going to break Ferrari here? Is a win at all possible?
Win's always possible. If you think back to just 7 days ago, I think Michael was 6th and we were on pole, so things will always turn around.
Okay, well, Matt, if you just want to go and have a look at Fernando's car and avoid some of the sort of strange things in the background here in the Renault garage. But Rod, one last question: do you still believe you can win this championship?
Yep. Absolutely. I was going to say no problem. No, it's going to be a struggle, but we can do it for sure.
Okay, thanks very much.
It's a fair point, that, isn't it, Mark? That this time last week we were sitting here previewing the Chinese Grand Prix. Everything was Alonso, everything was Renault, and it was Michael Schumacher under the cosh.
Definitely. But I think some of that was down to the conditions and circumstances. This looks a little bit cleaner cut to me, and it also looks like that the advantage Ferrari got. Let's not forget what we've seen in terms of lap time and performance and a differential between the rest of the grid. It's huge at the moment, and they've probably on average got 6 to 7 tenths per lap over everybody else in terms of outright performance gain.
And Shanghai was also a circuit where historically Schumacher struggled. He loves Suzuka. He's won here 7 times.
Definitely. Again, this is a circuit what suits Schumacher down to the ground. He's one of these guys who drives into the corners hard there, flicks the back end of the car out, and it suits that on the smaller and lesser speed turns. And then the high speed corners, Ferrari and Schumacher in their element, and they've got the grip with the Bridgestone tyres. So yeah, everything points to them getting this race done.
Well, it really is a great circuit, Suzuka, and in the absence of Spa on the schedule this season, it's also the longest circuit that they go to this year, and it's a real challenge. Let's watch Felipe Massa's pole position lap from yesterday. It's analysed by Martin Brundle.
The magnificent Suzuka circuit for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's 3.6 miles around, and we've seen record pace during this qualifying hour, despite it spitting with rain towards the closing stages. Felipe Massa is on pole. Let's take a look at his lap. 180 miles an hour down into turn 1. He downshifts once, very little braking. Then he has to get it slowed down to about 100 miles an hour for the apex of 2. A short straight for the S, the snake at the back of the pits. No braking required. It's all throttle application and just sweeping through a nice line. To the bottom of the hill for the Dunlop curve. It just keeps turning left. Apex early, take it to the outside. Apex very, very late to be on the left again for Degner. Watch this. 120, just keeps it within the confines of the track. He's tight again in Degner too, but he's away. Ringing the car out, flat right into the hairpin, breaking a straight line, all the grips on the inside, and there he goes. He's hooked up with that. Straighten the car as soon as you can for best traction. Cresting over a couple of small hills, a long right-hander feeding you in at 180 miles an hour to the famous Spoon corner. You brake extremely late, bring it down to 115, apex early, move towards the outside, a second apex, and you have to get good acceleration speed here. There's a long back straight ahead of you, climbing the hill gently up to 200 miles an hour towards the famous 130R corner, which is newly resurfaced this year. Not a hint of lift of the throttle, just scrubbing of the speed as the car pulls 5G through there. He's already into the final triangle chicane. He can take all the curb he wants, tickling the throttle until he can nail it as the car picks up grip and launches him into the pit straight.
Well, this man's driven a few laps around this circuit, Gerhard Berger. It's quite a special track, isn't it?
It's a driver circuit, yes.
Why?
Well, it's up and down, quick corners, slow corners, no runoff areas. Everything what you can wish as a driver, you're going to find here. Very difficult to set up the car, very difficult to do a fast lap here. One of the best circuit, maybe the best.
I watched you drive one of your old McLarens around here this morning. Did that bring back a few memories?
Of course, you know, when you go into the car, you see all the switches, what you used to put on and off, and when you see the gear lever, it puts a lot of holes in your hand, and a fantastic feeling.
You still fitted though?
Yeah, I fitted, but I don't tell how we had to do it, you know, no seats, we had to clean the whole car inside to get me in, but I was sitting comfortable.
Thanks, Gerhard.
Pleasure, John.
Yes, everybody loves Suzuka, the spectators included, because it always produces great racing, last year in particular.
It's always been a situation where we've seen some World Championships decided at this circuit as well, back in the old Senna Prost days and that kind of thing. But I think what Gerhard was saying there, most of the drives, if not all of them, would put this circuit in the top 2 or 3 tracks in the world to drive. It's the most challenging circuit, and it's one of those laps that when you get it right, it rewards you and you get something back from it. But definitely it's going to set a challenge to the guys today.
It is a tremendous shame that we do seem to be losing it off the calendar now.
Yeah, we got Fuji, which is coming up now on the calendar, but there's a lot of discussion, and even this week a lot of talk about Suzuka being back on the calendar for 2008, and I think everybody's got their fingers crossed.
Well, everyone loves Suzuka. I'm sure Sir Frank Williams is no exception in that respect, and I believe Sir Frank is talking with Ted.
Yes, thank you very much, Steve. And Frank, first question about Suzuka. We were talking about the history here, Damon's win, the championship win here in '96. Are you sad that we won't be coming here, it seems, for the foreseeable future?
It's a wonderful track, arguably the most difficult and demanding circuit of the entire championship. I think one day Bernie will bring us back as soon as they modernise the complex here. but it will be this next year.
Okay, well, there's a chance the engine might fire up in the background, but good chance for Williams for points today. You really need them.
Well, we really need those points quite importantly. Yes, Nico's been very strong all weekend. Mark should not be overlooked because he got a very aggressive start of racing. We might luck into some points, but we're going to try for it, sure.
Because all you need is 6 to overturn Red Bull, and you're one place further up in the constructors.
We'd like more. We're greedy.
Okay, thanks very much. Have a good race.
Has been a desperate season for Williams. Are they going to turn things around, do you feel?
I think as the season's gone on, you've seen big improvements. But you know, it's been unfortunate as well that they've had a little bit of a reliability issue in several areas of their car. And it's not the Williams that we're used to seeing. We're normally used to seeing a very punchy racer team, you know, led by Frank Williams there. But no, it's not the Williams of old, that's for sure. OK, let's go back to the topic of Suzuka, and if Fuji takes over next year. Well, Fuji is taking over next year, and if it continues to occupy the Japanese Grand Prix slot on the calendar, well, it's goodbye Suzuka, and we say goodbye to a great deal of Formula One history. So there's a lot of emotion around Suzuka this weekend as we head back to the circuit and join Ted once again.
Well, Steve, it seems inconceivable that we're not going to be coming back to Suzuka. The drivers aren't happy about it. Us race fans who get up in the middle of the night to watch the action aren't happy about it also. But this place is just dripping with history. Here is where Damon Hill won the championship in '96. Just up there where Senna and Prost collided in one of these beautiful McLarens, if you can just see that they're about to send off on a parade. So it's a sad goodbye to Suzuka, a place with such great history.
I've got to stop now, I've got a lump in my throat, and that was Damon Hill winning the World Championship here in 1996. It was the most emotional moment I ever had in motorsport.
The Japanese fans are something special, this discipline they have, and they are very trustful, they are very loyal, they are great fans.
Michael Schumacher out of the race, and Mika Häkkinen then is the world champion of 1998. And look, he is absolutely beside himself with joy.
Au revoir, Jean. It's been a pleasure.
I've always felt that winning here would be one of my best trophies, and it is really. It's what people say, separate the boy from the man, and here, and it's a really nice circuit.
180 miles an hour around the outside.
And we all drivers love Suzuka because it's a very difficult circuit, very challenging for the drivers, and also very demanding for the engine, for the tires, for the car. So Suzuka has a little bit of everything, and we love it.
Brilliant move, side by side down the straight, Grand Prix racing at its absolute finest.
Every driver loves this challenging circuit, and I hope everybody enjoy being here. So it's a shame to lose a traditional circuit like a Spa, Monza, Suzuka. Well, one by one is missing, so it's very, very sad, yeah.
To correctly, how can I say, approach this circuit, everything has to be very balanced, nice. You know, like everybody said, into the turn 1 to turn 8, down 9, it's other 0-1 in corner. It's very challenging and mentally, physically and engineeringly, so we all love it.
Well, it's a bit of a shame because it's a nice circuit, very technical and challenging, but on the other hand we are heading to Fuji, which is home Grand Prix for Toyota in this case, so I'm happy.
We know this place is great. We have always liked to race. Most drivers like the challenge of that circuit. And it's sad in a way, yeah.
So it's farewell Suzuka, but it is set to bow out with maybe some more Formula One history involving Michael Schumacher over the course of the next couple of hours. It is, of course, also the home circuit of Honda, which makes this a very big weekend for Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello. This season, of course, Jenson has got his first breakthrough Formula One victory, but there's been little else for Jenson and Honda to celebrate. He did get fourth in China last weekend, but that was rather gifted in his direction by the final final lap mix-up involving Sato and Heidfeld that allowed him through. It all rather disguised the big concerns that Honda have at the moment about engine development, which is the key to greater progress next season. Here's Ted again.
Fourth place in China was a bit of a gift for Jenson Button, but he's got a better chance of getting there on merit this weekend because at last Honda have provided him with a new improved engine. It was meant to debut 2 races ago in Monza, and Jenson's needed it for a while. He was a sitting duck on the Shanghai Straight, losing track position to the McLaren and just unable to defend from Michael's Ferrari. It was massively frustrating.
In a straight line, you know, just left me. And the same as Kimi. Kimi on a straight line was just staggering. And we need to look at the reasons why, because, you know, he looked about 15 k's quicker than me when he came past.
Engine power isn't the only factor. Is it also down to how much rear wing Honda ran?
Well, it's not. You know, a lot of people are running big wings. I mean, if you look at the Ferrari and the McLaren and the Renault, they're running pretty big wings, but yeah.
So it's clearly the engine, but you can understand why Jenson doesn't want to point the finger directly at his Japanese colleagues. But his boss, as ever, is looking on the bright side.
Drivers always want more power, so if we gave Jenson or any other driver another 100 horsepower, I'm sure they want another 100. That's their job. They want more, and you know, that's great. He should be pushing as hard as he can.
Button and teammate Barrichello have pushed the team, but they've also delivered solid qualifying results with the new power plant.
It's going to help us, you know, especially in this type of circuit, because it's sort of the mid-range. I think it's going to improve and help us. And you've got the whole of the S's from turn 2 to turn 7 or turn 8, which are mid-range, so it should help us there, and so it will make a bit of a difference, but it's not going to, you know, leapfrog us up to the front.
The big concern is, will it survive 2 races? Honda have fixed this particular problem, but the FIA's engine development freeze is starting soon. Engine designs racing here and in Brazil will be the ones each team uses until 2009. So if the new Honda engine doesn't survive the last 2 races, Jenson will have to use the old, slower spec for the next 3 years.
In testing, we've seen that this engine is better than the previous engine in performance, but not just that, in reliability it's very good. And there are many areas where it's an improvement over the last engine we had in the car, so it's a step forward.
Looking at the positive side as best he can, but if you were Jenson, how concerned would you be about the next couple of seasons?
I think you'd be concerned, but to be perfectly honest, I think there's a lot of other teams down there with bigger problems than what Honda have got. But, you know, don't worry about Honda. They are great engineers. They always come into the sport and won't go away till they've started winning. And I think you've seen that with the development program they've got. But I'd be a little bit more concerned about the delivery of power. Jenson's there about, you know, the straight line speed. It's not always about how much horsepower you've got sitting behind you. It's how it gets delivered to the circuit, and that's an important element.
It is a pretty tough deadline that all the teams are up against, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one for all of them to know where they should set their levels now, and then what they've got available to them in the next couple of years to make some progress. But, you know, you can go a little bit weak, can go a little bit too strong, and then reliability issue comes in as well. It's horsepower, consistency, reliability. It's a big question mark that has to be answered, and we won't see it till next season.
Well, Jenson's mood and Jenson's outlook on life had improved just a little when he talked with Louise a few hours ago.
Second race in the Far East doubleheader, and presumably a really busy one for you as it's Honda's home race.
Yeah, it is. It's been pretty hectic. You know, it's been non-stop for the past 5 days. Since Shanghai, it's been arrived in Tokyo and PR all the way. But it's been all right. It hasn't been too tiring.
How do you enjoy the whole Japanese experience?
I love it. I love Japan. I really do. It does feel like another home, and especially Tokyo. It's such a great city. I love the food, I love the people, I love the culture, so yeah, you know, I don't mind spending time here at all.
What's the response been like from the fans?
The fans are great, you know, especially here at Suzuka. You know, it's just littered with them everywhere, not just in the grandstands, but you walk somewhere and it's just mobbed by fans. You arrive at the circuit driving in and you just can't, you're driving over people's feet, they don't move out of the way. So they are really, you know, they love it when Formula One comes to town, and it's a pity when it's going to have to move next season to another circuit.
Is it my imagination, or do you think there are more people here this year?
I think there are more. I've just been over to the Honda stand outside the circuit, and it's just unbelievable. It's just a sea of people. And the best thing is the Garn stage gets them all to wave their Honda flags, and it's just I've never seen anything like it. And they don't wave it like this. They just wave like that, little movements, and it's so cute. It's awesome to have so much support, and they haven't got a care in the world this weekend. They're just here to watch Formula One.
How sad are you that we're not going to be racing here anymore?
I'm massively disappointed. This is a circuit I love, and I think every driver feels the same. Maybe not the Toyota drivers. But from turn 2 to turn 8, you know, we had qualifying, and it's just I can't even explain how amazing it is. You know, it's so fast through that complex. You don't have time to think. You know, it's just bang, 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 and if you make one mistake, you're in the wall. You know, it's phenomenal, and it's the only circuit that is like that. You know, Beckett's at Silverstone might be close, but it isn't quite on the same level as here. And every time I come here, it does take my breath away. That section of the circuit.
You're running the new upgraded engine this weekend. How's it going?
It's definite improvement. You know, if you look at our speeds on the straight, we've come from being 2/3 of the way down to being in the top 6 or 7. So it's an improvement. I'm happy to see it. It's bigger than I expected.
What's your feeling for the race? What are your expectations?
Well, I think we're going to have a pretty exciting first corner because the Toyotas aren't that good off the line. And the Renaults are pretty phenomenal, so we're going to have 4 abreast into turn 1, and I'm just going to be sitting behind and waiting for something to happen. But yeah, I think we can have a good race, and we just got to see how the tyres perform, the 2 manufacturers perform. We really don't know yet, but if they perform well, our car is definitely capable of doing a good job. In testing yesterday, I was saying how positive it felt, and as I said, podium would be awesome this weekend, and that's what we're going to fight for.
We look forward to it.
Thank you. Arigato.
Yeah, well, Richard, General Manager at Toyota F1, was this just a sort of corporate pole, as people are calling it, or corporate qualifying position, as you are in the second row?
No, I mean, we're quite happy with the fuel load we have, and I hope that, you know, with the conditions we have and we've got good tyres this weekend from Bridgestone, as you can see, so I think, you know, we're hoping to be able to keep our position and get some good points this race.
You're right in the middle of the championship battle as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, after getting in between Ferrari, Renault in the middle there, we have to make sure that we don't cause any problems for either of them. But, you know, we're hopeful that we get a good start and we'll be up there and we'll hold our position and see how we get on.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay.
It's a big day today.
Why? Every day, 24 hours, like every day.
No, but I mean, the championship is getting to a climax now.
You know, we are not in a great position, this is sure, but we're trying to do everything possible.
Do you feel as though you're slightly on the back foot?
No, I feel that Bristol is very competitive. You feel the same?
Well, it does look that way. Tell me, how's Fernando this weekend? Because there's been a lot of talk of him not being so happy with the team.
I don't think so, no, honestly, no. It's not the case. It's no case at all. The case is we see Ferrari, we see Toyota very competitive here, and we see Bristol really, really competitive. This happened already in the last 8-9 races. This was worrying me, instead to Fernando, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what do you feel is Renault's support for Fernando Alonso, given the fact that he's moving at the end of the season? How strong is the backing from the likes of Flavio Briatore?
I don't think there's any issues about what support he's got from Renault's point of view. I think the situation is obviously reflecting on Alonso back to the team. He just doesn't clearly see that he's got the level of support that he needs to get the championship done. And he's probably looking across to the other garages and seeing Schumacher and Ferrari, who wholeheartedly are getting everything behind Schumacher to win this title. But listen to Flavio Briatore. I mean, the guy's a politician, isn't he? He quickly deflected the question and answered it with something completely different.
Is he a good man to have in your corner when the chips are down, do you feel?
I think he is. I think he's a great guy in terms of, you know, he's a businessman through and through, and he applies everything to his racing team there to make sure they get the job done. And it's something which has been done last year. Renault are still strong. Let's not count them out by any means, but it is an uphill struggle for them.
Well, the cars are heading out onto the Suzuka grid right now. We'll be out there with them. We'll give you a chance at our ITV F1 competition as well. As the countdown continues to this Japanese Grand Prix, we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes.
F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power. F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power.
Alonso versus Schumacher. Is this the big head-to-head that will decide the championship? Suzuka has seen showdowns like this before. One of the most challenging circuits in Formula One, and one of the most enthusiastic crowds as well. And the cars are heading down to the grid, and we can head down to Ted, hear more from Ted Kravitz.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, just walking to the grid with Ferrari boss Jean Todt. This is a crucial day. This is it, Jean. You need to win this one.
it's still 2 races to go, so we do what we can.
But while Bridgestone have the advantage as they do here in Japan, you need the 10 points, and do you need a 1-2 today?
Between what you need and what you get, it's always a difference. So we will see what we get.
And how are you going to manage the situation with Michael and Felipe?
53 laps to go, so it's a long race in front of us.
Felipe's done a good job. He didn't really read the script putting it on pole position. He has done a good job this weekend.
Why only this weekend? It's first race you attend this year?
No, certainly not. He was on pole in Turkey and won the race there.
Strong position because he's a great driver, good car, good team, good tires. That's the main reason.
Are you going to win this World Championship?
I wish we can, but I'm not the only one to wish, So position wants, so we will see. It's open, it's good.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Back to you, Steve.
Well done, Ted. Ferrari in feisty mood. What do you make of all that from Jean Todt, Mark?
I think they need to work on that relationship there. But, no, I think Jean Todt is a very straightforward guy, and at the end of the day, he knows what's got to get done today. The 53 laps, as he said, there's no decision going to be made until they need to make it. And as we see a Ferrari going, from the front row onwards, if it's Schumacher and Massa into the first corner, they'll worry about that at the end of the race to decide what goes next. Got everything under control, that's for sure, as Felipe Massa heads towards that pole position. We'll be heading to the grid as well, Martin Brundle very shortly. Just before we do that, time to remind you of the ITV F1 website, where you'll find all the information you need to enjoy and understand this sport even more, and you can put direct questions to Mark Blundell for him to answer in our question mark feature ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's where you can also get information on the ITV F1 competitions. And last week we asked you where the Brazilian Grand Prix is actually located, and for correctly answering that the Interlagos circuit is in Sao Paulo, our winner, Dave Fitchett of Oxford, will enjoy watching that Brazilian Grand Prix as guests of Williams at their headquarters in Grove in Oxfordshire. Now Louise has our last competition of the season.
In this weekend's competition, you've got a chance to win a Sony Bravia 46-inch HD-ready LCD TV with a PSP, a PS2 and a Formula One game. Here's David Coulthard with the question.
I scored Red Bull's first podium this year. Was it in A, Australia, B, Monaco, or C, Silverstone? Good luck.
So that question again, at which race did David Coulthard score Red Bull's first ever podium? Was it A, Australia, B, Monaco, or C, Silverstone? The number to call is 0901 293 2020, or you can text F1 plus A, B or C to 63337. Calls and texts cost £1 per entry plus the standard network rate, and lines will close at midnight on Wednesday the 18th of October.
David Coulthard involving himself in our competition, but he was distinctly unimpressed that neither he nor his Red Bull teammate Robert Dornbos made it through the first qualifying session in Japan yesterday. This, after all, is a team with big ambitions for next season, Red Bull. And this is what he had to say yesterday.
This is not about being in front of your teammate or not. This is about a team that's underperforming. We've been out-qualified by last year's car. And this year started badly and we haven't really recovered from that. So that's my biggest disappointment, is taking the longer term view as to, do we have the right people in all of the departments to confidently exploit those that we know have got a winning record. And, we won't know until we have the new car on track next January, but I'm nervous.
Well, some very strong words there from David Coulthard. He clearly has some issues with some of the personnel at Red Bull. Christian, is that with good reason?
I think that you've obviously caught David just after he's jumped out of the car at the end of a disappointing qualifying session for all of us. David's very aware that the personnel we've got in the team, it's a very strong group. I think it's under Adrian Newey's leadership, we've got one of the stronger groups in Formula One. We made a strategic decision earlier in the summer really to turn off the development on the current car to focus on RB3 on next year's car, which will be a significant step forward for us. And it was a very simple and straightforward decision to make to put all our eggs in one basket behind Adrian rather than splitting our resource. So inevitably there's a bit of short-term pain, but we're expecting to see some longer-term gain from it. So totally understand David's frustration, but he's a big part of our package for next year.
But surely David knows all of that. Why is he still trying to get this message across?
I think David, he's a competitive guy. He's still extremely motivated. And, unfortunately to come here a circuit that he enjoys to qualify 17th, which really was a culmination of factors. One, yes, the car hasn't progressed. Two, we're not on the best tyre here this weekend. Even so, he knows what's coming. He knows what's in the pipeline. And, we've got a lot of people working extremely hard in Milton Keynes that will produce a good car for us next year. I've got no doubt of that.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
So David Coulthard and Robert Dornbos sharing row 9 on that Japanese Grand Prix grid at Suzuka. Most of the attention at the front of the grid. The all-Ferrari front row of Felipe Massa and Michael Schumacher, and so much is being talked about Schumacher in glowing terms, of course. But what about the development of Felipe Massa that you've seen during the course of this season, Mark?
I think Massa's come on in leaps and bounds, Stevie, and only a couple of seasons ago he had a very erratic driving style. It looked like he was basically going to be, having an accident every other lap. The guy is changed and transformed. He's got a very smooth style now. Definitely is producing some great results within the Ferrari environment, and I think there's a lot more to come from him.
It's a bad day in qualifying yesterday for the two McLarens. Pedro de la Rosa back there on row 7, Kimi Raikkonen on row 6. Just ahead of them, Nick Heidfeld in the first of the BMWs, and we can hear from him with Ted.
Well, we haven't spoken about BMW this weekend. How are you looking, Nick?
Not too bad. Made it into the top 10. I hope, honestly, that some people in front of us are on a bit less fuel. We expect so with some cars, and we hope for points as usual.
You think you might be able to get that 4th place that you were robbed of in Shanghai?
I don't think we will be as strong here as we were in Shanghai. First of all, in the wet, we seem to be stronger. But also in the dry, I think we were better there than here. Also because the Bridgestone seem to be very strong here, so we have the 2 Toyotas in front and also some other Bridgestone cars competing with us.
How's this wind affecting the cars going to the grid?
It's quite strong, but it's similar to yesterday. It makes it a bit more difficult to drive because you arrive in each corner and it might change from lap to lap.
Have a good one.
Nick Heidfeld tucked in just behind the two Hondas of Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello. We heard quite a bit from Jenson, Mark, but he feels quite optimistic about maybe being able to pick up the pieces from what happens ahead of him between Renault and Toyota in particular.
Definitely, because I think there is a serious situation of the Toyotas not having enough fuel on to get the job done, and reeling back as the race goes in. But Honda have come on strong these last couple of races. Now, mid-season they were really down in the doldrums, Steve, as we saw, and they have progressed. And I think Jenson also has got his confidence back slightly. He had a little bit of a mid-season lull, and he's just pressing ahead there, and is going very well.
Is that the confidence of being a race winner?
Definitely, no two ways about that. Put a win under your belt there and put it on your CV, and he can hold his head high.
Okay, it's a race full of possibilities and a grid, I'm sure, that is full of tension. Let's get right down there with Martin Brundle. Martin.
Wonderful atmosphere on this grid. Big crowd, a natural bowl here for this Grand Prix circuit, and a very intriguing, if slightly complex grid. Michael Schumacher here on the outside of the front row. Surely wishes he was on pole. And just behind him is his brother with Alonso several meters behind him with a lot of work to do. Let's just catch this little man while he's... Bernie, quick word. Who do you want to win this World Championship?
I don't mind.
Well, surely you don't want Michael to wander off into retirement to take the kids to school with the championship. You need the world champion on the track next year.
Well, I mean, if he wins, it's because he deserves to win. So, I mean, that's the way you have to look at it, I suppose. Better he wins and stays.
Who do you think deserves to win it?
Probably Michael. Done a better job at the last few races. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to. Going to be hard to catch today, but doesn't, we'll see what happens, huh?
All right, good stuff. Last race here then for a while. You ever going to bring us back here?
Let's see. Let's have a look. I mean, everybody's happy here. The drivers like the circuit. You love the circuit. So we'll see, huh?
Is it, well, you just got to spend a few more shillings or something, or what is it, and tidy it up a bit?
Need to just bring it up to date. It's like an old house at the moment. Needs a bit of a facelift.
All right, we're going to have a word with some drivers. Thanks for that, Bernie. We'll just have a quick word. Oh, he's just gone off the grid as well, has Jarno. Let's see if we can find any of these drivers. I started to tell you about the intrigue. Michael Schumacher outside of the front row. His brother just behind him. The two Toyotas on the second row of the grid. It's a bit like a Noah's Ark grid. Two Ferraris, two Toyotas, two Renaults, and then, of course, two Hondas, and there's a double grudge match going on. Alonso desperately trying to catch the Ferrari, Toyota on Honda's turf here, wanting to beat the Honda team who are on the fourth row, so you can look forward to that. Let me just see if I can find the pole man down at the front there and have a quick word with him. He's got a bit of a job to do today. At some point they're going to have to let Michael Schumacher through. They cannot afford to have what happened in Turkey, where they queued after a safety car situation and it cost Michael Schumacher any chance of the race. So Felipe, pole position for you. Tricky job you've got today, really. I mean, you know, surely you're fast enough to win the race, but you've got to think of Michael's championship.
Yeah, for sure, it's not a very easy job, but I mean, our job is difficult anyway, so. But anyway, it's important to try to do the best, try to help the team, and Michael has a huge chance in front of him, and I'm gonna help as possible to if he can achieve that in this race, will be already fantastic. So let's work together and try to achieve that.
So presumably you just got to try and get out front, build a gap, and leave some space then for you to do the swap over, which everybody thinks is reasonable. It's team play. I mean, it's just common sense, isn't it?
Well, let's wait and see how is in the beginning of the race, and let's try to see the best position, the best situation.
All right, congrats on pole again. Let's wander down and see. We know that Michael only really tends to talk to the RTL German television, unfortunately, so I don't think we'll waste any time trying to get a word with him, because it's just not going to happen. Jean Todt says, look, there's 2 races to go, we're not even thinking about the championship. But let's be absolutely clear, 53 laps from now, this car with the magnificent Michael Schumacher at the wheel could win the World Championship in just a while, and that's because if Alonso gets it wrong from back here on the 3rd row of the grid, if Alonso gets it wrong at all, then and he doesn't score any points, surely we're expecting Schumacher to win the race. I don't know if Alonso is on the grid. We're missing an awful lot of drivers at the moment. We'll see if we can hang around long enough for them to return from the toilet. You know what one driver said to me? It's amazing how few of them wash their hands at the toilet just before the race. Don't you think that's shocking? Apparently Jensen is over here on the pit wall. Let's see if we can just spend a bit of time with him, because he's going to be in the have the best view in the house. Best grandstand seat in the house then, Jensen, and what's going on in front of you?
Yeah, I mean the Renaults are obviously great at the starts, and the Toyotas don't seem to be that special at the start, so it's going to be 4 abreast into turn 1, I think, and I think I'll be close behind.
All right, good stuff. And what your mission is to beat Toyota today, really, yeah?
Well, not just Toyota. We've got more of a mission than that. That's not what we're here to do.
I mean, that's the grudge match, isn't it? I mean, are you quick enough to beat Renault and have a look at Ferrari?
Renault's going to be tough, but, you know, if we get a good start and they get all modelled up at turn 1, we can. I think we can do something.
See you later. Thanks for the chat. Right, Trulli has returned, hopefully with clean hands. Let's go and see if we can see what his job is today. I really want to talk to Ralf Schumacher as well, because I think he's got a fascinating challenge ahead of him. I don't know if we can. I don't know how popular we'll be walking across there, but we'll give it a try. Jarno, quick word for ITV. Tricky job for you today, yeah. You obviously you got a good run up the inside there behind Michael. You got your old best friend Fernando behind you, looking for a championship. Where's your mind at with that?
Well, it's not going to be easy, because I am on the dirty side of the circuit, so I might have some problem getting out through the first corner, keeping in the position. But nevertheless, I think we can race from here. It's the best so far results in qualifying from Toyota, and I believe we have a strong race, a strong car.
So you can only think about you, really. You can't worry about your old friend, no?
I don't care about anyone. I just think about myself.
Well done. Right. Finally, I think we might be able to find. I've just walked past him, apparently. Ralph, have you got 2 minutes? 1 minute even. Right.
Anyway, so come on.
Tricky job for you there. Your big brother sitting there. He wants to win the World Championship, and you just want to stop him, presumably. Or you just want to do your best. What are you thinking?
Well, I think I hope that I have a good start and that I can overtake him in the first turn. I mean, our starts haven't been that good so far, so let's hope we get a good one in. And we need to be careful with the Renaults too. We certainly don't want to interfere with any championship decisions by stupid moves, but at the other hand, we have to go for our race and have to try and score as many points as possible. We desperately need them, as you saw from this season.
Well, now Michael's surely going to cut across left to cut you off, and Alonso could well be driving right through here, couldn't he?
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, first of all, Michael has to start moving too, and I hope by that time I'm well past him.
All right, thanks. I've got to get off the grid. I think you've got to get in the car. See you.
Well done, Martin, and Ralph and Michael, brothers in opposition. At times like this, how does that relationship work, Mark?
I think there's zero brotherly love there if you look at what we just saw. But no, I think they've got to concentrate on their own races. You can't have a worry about thinking about anybody else around you on the grid. You've got to just focus on getting the job done into turn one. And that's going to be a very important factor for Alonso there, making sure that he gets past those Toyotas.
Okay, let's go swiftly to Louise, who I think has got Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens, fantastic crowd here, isn't it?
It's a special feeling. It is like going to Monza with Ferrari, and it's the same feeling here. A lot of support. Unfortunately, we're not doing that well. We hope to be better at the race.
How well do you think you can do in this race?
I'm not so sure. The Bridgestones are doing very well, and it's difficult to see a lot of improvement. I mean, the wind calmed down a little bit. It might help us, but it's difficult that. To see that we can pass them, because here is only strategy. You cannot pass on the circuit, so my only thing is hope.
Thanks, Rubens.
Now, Martin was doing his best on his grid walk, but Mark, you try to anticipate what Fernando Alonso is going to do off the start line. We've seen championships won and lost before at the first corner at Suzuka.
Definitely, but Alonso understands that he has a great car underneath him in terms of getting off the line. And he's got the confidence to go into turn one, knowing that he might be able to just squeeze by. I don't think the Toyotas will be much of a problem, to be very honest with you. They haven't been good off the grid, and Alonso's focus will definitely be to tag on the back of those two Ferraris. And what Rubens just alluded to there, they have to do something tactically to get something out of this race. It is very, very difficult to overtake round here.
Right, and the tactics within Ferrari are going to be fairly clear-cut, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think Martin Brundle tried to get that out of Massa there, but Felipe's too cute for that. But, we have to look at it and look at the World Championship, and we do know what the situation is, and we know that Schumacher needs to win this race. Massa's going to be in that support role, and, he's Brazilian. He's going to look to Interlagos to get his win again, I'm sure.
And those sort of team orders are perfectly understandable in this kind of situation. Felipe Massa, the second pole position of his career. His final thoughts before the grid starts to clear at a location that has decided champions and championships in the past, and Suzuka perhaps is poised to make history once again in this penultimate round of the 2006 Formula One World Championship. Grid is clearing. Join us shortly for the final countdown to this Japanese Grand Prix.
F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power. F1 on ITV, sponsored by Shell V-Power.